Special Report.
Black holes are one of the strangest things in existence.
Neil Armstrong may have seen extraterrestrials on the moon.
When he spies a discernible shape.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
You can deny all the things I've seen, all the things I've discovered, but not for much longer. Because too many others know what's happening out there. And no one, no government agency has jurisdiction over the truth.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to Full Spectrum Universe. My name is Rob Yox. Welcome to another edition. And we have an amazing guest for you this evening, or this afternoon, sorry. Usually I'm used to doing night shows, but it's an afternoon show today. Before we get to that, I just want to pay the bills really quick and go through some of the events that we have coming up. And I'm not going to post all the posters and everything like that. Just be on the lookout for our May 4th event called Echoes of Our Ancestors. We're working on it. It's about all extrasensories, potentialities, and modalities. It's going to be really, really great. Also, check us out next week with Portal to Ascension. They're doing their annual, their twice-a-year conference, and I'm going to be one of the MCs there as well. And it's going to be a lot of fun. We have so many different people like Alan Steinfeld, Grant Cameron, Laura Eisenhower, just so many names and so many people that you'll recognize. It's really going to be an amazing event. We're going to have so much fun, as we always do. So let me just give you a little bit of a background on how today's guest came about. So we've been talking about timelines and essentially premonitions into the future and what we see could be the next levels or the next steps of where we're going as a species. And we know about extra dimensions. We know about, the different levels of enlightenment, the 4D to 5D, the different, we talked to people like Phil Gruber, tells us that there's 13 densities, things like that. So one of the things that we've noticed is that we need to get ahead of what's happening on this planet now. And we kind of are. And when I saw a TikTok video from our guest, Aubrey Parks, it confirmed a lot of what we've been saying. And I think she's super in tune with what's happening right now. And a lot of her predictions are spot on. When I mean spot on, I went through a lot of her TikTok videos to, do my research to be able to talk to her today and know her work a lot better. And I have seen from January of 2021, her talking about the war that's happening in Europe right now and things like that. And it was so phenomenal. And it's like, I have to talk to Aubrey. I have to get her on the show. So before I bring her in, let me just tell you a little bit about her. She's vetted and certified by the American Association of Psychics and Bob Olson's Best Psychic Directory. Aubrey is a nationally recognized psychic and spiritual coach who has served hundreds of people in need for accurate guidance and clarity. What sets Aubrey apart from other intuitives is not only her down-to-earth nature and honest approach, but the use of her uncanny and rare gifts to be able to give her clients the most jaw-dropping and life-changing experiences. Blessed with the 4 clairs, she mostly uses her gifts of clairsentience, empathic ability, to tune into other people to see their true nature and intentions and their thoughts as well. And discerning any emotional or physical roadblocks that may be hindering them. She helps people ascend. She helps people get ahead, which is, you can't ask for better than that. I mean, that's truly amazing. And Aubrey also occasionally uses the tarot cards as a divination tool to look even deeper at your situation and at hand. And when speaking to Aubrey, you will automatically feel a deep sense of calm, letting loose any as she gives you her insight from an empathic and not judgmental place. She also offers powerful energy healings to those who are feeling imbalanced and are looking to heal their lives for the better. So without further ado, let's bring in Aubrey. Aubrey, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you, Rob?
I am absolutely amazing. And just so everybody knows, if if you when we're finished here today, in the comments or in the what is it, the details of this video, all of Aubrey's websites, so you can follow her on her website or TikTok or Instagram, everything that we have for Aubrey. So, Aubrey, one of the first things I usually do when a guest comes on is I ask them, when was that moment that you knew that you were a little bit different and that you had these extra abilities, and we'll get a little bit further down the line, but tell us all
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah, it actually pretty much started as a child. I mean, not at the time did I realize that I was tapped into something. I think from a very young age, I started having out of body experiences, and I always kind of felt like I was tapped into something a little bit more. And then gradually throughout the years, I started discovering that I had certain gifts. One of the first gifts that I actually started noticing I could do was remote viewing. And I would end up scaring a lot of my friends because I could talk to them on the phone. I'm like, I know everything that's around you right now. Um, and I would kind of freak them out a little bit. But I really kind of stepped into the other Claire's after I had my son, which was about 18 years ago now. And then as I've been doing this work, more and more insight has come in. And I've also been through numerous different types of spiritual awakenings. So I feel like I have like a greater understanding of like the universe and the reality we live in now. And so I've really expanded throughout the years. So it's been quite the journey.
What you just said there was incredible, is that when you had your son,
Mhm,
you essentially became more in tuned with everything
mhm.
else around you. And a lot of people, when that happens, they tend to hyper focus on the child. And you kind of took it the other way, and were able to basically resonate with the universe around you, or pick up on the frequencies that are all happening around you. That's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Yeah. Well, I mean, my son, he's pretty special too. I mean, he's a super old soul. And he's not quite in alignment with what I do. He's a very like logical type of person, but he also believes in past lives. And both of us agree, like he's had some serious hardcore past lives, and he's here for a reason. So I think that there was a part of his energy that kind of like woke me up in a way, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. I think that
Yeah.
that's phenomenal too. One of the things I also want to, I want to commend you on is you're helping people, as you're essentially an arbiter of awakening, and you're going around and helping people see that there is hope. There is, you're giving back to the community at large. And I think that that's one of the most admirable things anybody can do. It's sort of one of the reasons why we do this show, is to, you know, Phil Gruber says it the best when he says, the information is the activation. And I think that that's truly, truly amazing. And what you're doing is you're showing people the path at which, you know, we can become this harmonious future, but
Yeah.
we're also going to see the tribulations that come along before that. And you're an arbiter of truth too. And I think that that's huge. And I've been saying the whole, from the beginning of January this year, is that 2022 is the year of the truth seeker. This is our year for validation and all the things that we've been, you know, going through. So,
Absolutely.
when was the moment that you decided that you're going to use these gifts to help people?
Well, for the longest time, actually, before I got into this line of work, I was strongly considering on being some sort of therapist of some sort. Mostly because I've been through quite a bit of difficult journeys in my lifetime, but I've been able to learn from them and have a bigger understanding as to why I went through the challenges that I went through. And every time I learn something, I really want to be able to share that with other people. So, that's why I implement coaching with my readings, because I feel like I could give so much more than just what the future holds. And oftentimes, and luckily because of free will, I may be able to see a certain outcome where this person may be on a certain path, but I get them to make better choices to re-navigate it so they align with the path that they're meant to go on. So I don't fluff things up like normal psychics do. I'm not like a fortune teller or anything like that. I give people straight facts. I'm just like, this is what it is. And if you want to change it, this is what you can do to change it. So, I really want to enlighten people. It's very rewarding.
I totally agree, and that's another one of the reasons why I liked your videos is because there isn't any fringe to it. It's all slap it down on the table. Here it is. You like it, take it. If you
Right.
don't, there's the door. And for me, that's kind of like my mentality a lot of the time too, because before this year, and I'm sure you're fully aware of it, going through and telling people these types of truths is very could be ostracizing. People could feel very alone because it's sort of the quasi normal of what everybody else would see as the real and natural progression of a person,
Mhm.
and it gets very difficult. And one of the things I also like is that you are building your community, and it's wild because I think another job of somebody like myself is to collect these communities and bring them all together to be this tremendous community, because we are making a difference out there. And the specific video that we watched was the one where you talked about the timelines and
Mhm.
how they're all snapping into sort of like a timeline prime.
Right.
And it's actually indicative of what you see in the DC comics when they have this crisis on Infinite Earths,
Yeah.
and then it snaps back to Earth Prime, and that's kind of why I call it Timeline Prime. But can
Right.
you explain that a little bit more in detail to the audience?
Well, I mean, it goes into basically kind of quantum physics and alternate in parallel universes as well. Every time we make a decision, there's always a split off in a new timeline whenever we make that decision. However, it doesn't mean that the timeline we were once in goes away. It actually splits off and becomes its own reality. So there's an alternate version of you living that alternate part that made the other decision. Um, so what's going on here is that, like, with every choice that we made prior to 2012, basically kind of created alternate different timelines. But during that period of 2012, and why it's so significant, is that we started to see all the timelines starting to collapse into one. Now, there have been numerous different also timeline shifts, especially in 2020. I personally felt it. There were actual physical symptoms that went along with this timeline shift. And I know a lot of people felt it. And so, since especially 2020, we've been on this path of basically truth and justice, and being able to dismantle the systems that have been in place. So the ultimate outcome, and basically what I talked about in this video, which was Project Looking Glass, which is a secret government project that's been around for quite some time, but these military officials actually did determine that the timeline that we are on now inevitably leads to a new Earth being created. So no matter what the elites do at this point, they're never going to win. They're not winning. And that's why they're pushing so hard right now to control and to put their agenda out there. It's like an ego thing. Like, if you know the outcome, it's almost like you refuse to acknowledge that outcome, and you're going to try harder to make sure that that outcome doesn't happen. And that's exactly what they're doing. They're manipulating us. They're manipulating forces. This is so much more than just like the global elite trying to take over the world. This is an actual, like, spiritual war that's happening right now. They're actually really trying to manipulate consciousness, especially with the
Hmm.
what. So they're pushing all of the narratives and everything just to manipulate it as much as they can, but it's not going to work. We're on the timeline for change.
I totally agree, and that's one of the things that really it should give people hope. The fact that there is no way that they can win, and one of the things you have to be aware of is that programming too, so you don't get caught up as collateral damage, as being a part of this awakening and this process of this great deceit that is, you're right, so much more than just people vying for money or power. It really has a lot to do with this subversion of the consciousness and trying to inhabit that consciousness and bring it to their side. It's very difficult to explain sometimes because you feel it. You don't always see it. You feel it a lot more. And one of the things I wanted to talk with you too is, you know, a lot of what you do also has a lot of historical context too. Like we brought up 2012, which was that Mayan calendar where they said, "Oh, everything's going to end," and
Mhm.
it's the end of the world. And we see a lot of this, and a lot of those are not so much. I want to say they're not world ending. They're more they're more breeding into a new version of Earth,
A
right?
little
Which
beginning. Yeah.
right,
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, in tarot, what's interesting, whenever you pull the death card, for example, people freak out because it's death, and a lot of people believe that death is an ending, but death actually is a basically an ending of a cycle and a beginning of a new one. So we are seeing a death, and we're seeing the death of the old systems in place. And just everything that's coming out in the media right now, especially, like, that just goes to prove that all of our systems are becoming dismantled. Like Hollywood is in the process of this too, education, healthcare. All of these are going to change exponentially in the future. And this is and a lot of people like hold on to that and they're freaked out because of that ego that gets in the way, kind of like, I'm so used to living a certain way of life, like I don't want it to change. But it's like, but these systems have not been serving us. It's like being in an abusive relationship for like 40 years, and be like, this is all I know. And then it's like, here comes a new partner that treats you wonderfully and is amazing to you. And you're like, I don't know if I want that, because it's like, this is a whole new world for me. So there's a lot of undoing that needs to be happening, especially with brainwashing. I mean, humanity has been brainwashed for so long, and there's definitely going to have to be a lot of deprogramming that happens. And what's going to happen in the next couple of years is really going to change people, and a lot of people, unfortunately, probably will be so overwhelmed with all of the information that comes out that they may end up, leaving this planet, and not wanting to be here anymore. So this is definitely going to be a survival of the fittest, like the strongest willed and the strongest minded, and the people that are ready to experience change will be able to move forward. But there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to be they're not going to want to be on board. So you're kind of,
right.
yeah.
No, I agree, and let the people know how they could possibly spiritually prepare for this time and this transition.
Well, like I said, it's having that awareness that our reality is so much more than what we see. Basically, our reality is just a projection of human consciousness. And well, the places like the media, our government, our institutions say, and that's the thing we got to understand of the law of attraction and consciousness, is that these outlets deliberately manipulate the masses in order to create the reality that they want to create. And the thing is that we have the power to create whatever reality that we want. And so that's the thing that we need to understand, is that we may see the world around us in chaos, but if we stay grounded within ourselves and basically just say, no, that is not my reality, you're going to shift that. And you're going to be better prepared to handle what's to come. And according to Hopi prophecy, too, and I'm sure you're aware of this, but even the Hopis said that those that are kind of heart, they will be able to be protected while we go through the shift. So if you're a good person at heart, if you are spiritually aware, you don't have to be a woo-woo, I play with crystals kind of person either. Like, that's not important. What's important is that you're conscious and you're aware and you're in love and light. And if you stay in that fear vibration, that's not going to do you any favors. It's going to make it a lot more challenging. So I would say, like, that's basically the best way to prepare, just knowing that all of this needs to happen for a reason.
I completely agree in that. I love that Hopi prophecy that says, as long as you stand in love and kindness, there is nothing that can penetrate that outer shell to take you down, and it's absolutely true. And you called out in January of 2021 the dismantling of Hollywood.
Mhm.
And, another thing you talked about was a UFO invasion or a
Right.
planned UFO invasion. How do you think that this plays out? I mean, tell us your ideas of how this might just play out.
Well, what's very interesting about the UFO situation. So, there's a lot of subjects that I have to be careful with touching on social media platforms because of censorship and stuff like that. And there's like so much more I want to talk about. So I'm glad that I have a platform to be able to say these things. um, but yeah, like I said about everything that's happening, it's like I said, it's so much more than the global elite trying to take over, right? But we're actually dealing with extraterrestrials that are behind this too. And I know to a lot of people that sounds crazy, but I also posted a TikTok recently too, talking about how Eisenhower signed the Grenada Treaty, which was an agreement to exchange alien technology for the abduction of humans and for hybridization purposes. Uh, so I firmly believe that whatever is also in these things are also used to be able to manipulate human DNA and also to hybridize people. So there's like this war between the elites as well as extraterrestrial forces, which is interesting. But then we also have benevolent ETs that are also trying to intervene and also help the consciousness, and they're also kind of a part of this awakening process that we're going through. So we will see real, legitimate, you know, ships. Okay, that's happening, and that's happening soon. I actually had a dream the other night, um, and this was just a few nights ago. I was in a city and I saw everybody in panic, and everybody was just like, "Oh my God!" And they were looking at the sky, and the sky was filled with UFOs. Um, and with me, I was like, I knew this was going to happen. But so I think we will see legitimate ships. I think that the thing is that ETs have been pressuring our governments to create full disclosure, and there's almost like this thing: if they don't do it, they're going to show up themselves. The thing is that either A, the government will kind of plan an invasion, or B, what they could do is that they'll take a real invasion and demonize it, to scare the masses and basically saying like these are bad guys. I almost kind of feel like it's more of the latter. I think that we are going to see ships. I really do feel like they're really going to start to make their presence known because they do want to wake up humanity. Um, and then I think that the government could easily just say, oh, well, we need to take caution. Like these aren't good guys, that kind of thing, and really try to push people in fear. So there's going to be a lot of weird stuff. Like we're going to feel like we're living in like a sci-fi dystopian movie. I mean, we already kind of feel that way anyway,
Yeah.
but
Yeah. And
it's getting weirder.
I'm sure it will. If it's this weird now, we're not even towards the end of that crescendo. We're getting there, but it's going to get a lot weirder on the other side of that wave. What the
Absolutely.
reason why I said this to you today of all days is because there was a Freedom of Information Act that was put out to the Pentagon, and they just released 1,200 secret documents that were essentially released through a specific company. I actually was just talking about it in a clubhouse room, and I have the link, and it's wild that they got this information. But there is a lot of what you're talking about, and it talks about this proponent of the UFO community that is essentially a disinformation campaign. And the prominent people that we would know if we saw them on TV are actually acting as a mouthpiece for the government within this community and kind of deception and deceiving. And I think that you're going to be right on with this one because a lot of it talks about different encounters, somewhat like what we've seen or somewhat like what you hear about a lot. But I believe it's going to be on a mass scale very, very soon because they talk about it in these documents, and it's really wild.
That's good to know.
Crazy, right? And
Yeah.
you've been so right on for so many things too. And one of the things I wanted to ask you too, and if you don't want to answer the question, I totally get it. But what is your process like to go into getting into that state of mind to be able to see these things? And who are your spirit guides? Take us through the journey of what happens when you all of a sudden decide that you're going to get this download, or it just happens to you. Tell us how that happens for you.
Well, it's been a process. So a lot of this information I don't usually get all at once. And a lot of this information came through more specifically when I was having my spiritual awakenings. And I was just kind of flooded and downloaded with so much information that really shook up my reality to the point where I felt like I was mentally losing it. Um, like some of the information just, and there's a lot to cover, to be honest, but my whole perspective of reality had changed after getting all of this information from my spirit guides. I've had some really wild and crazy experiences over the past few months, even, and it's just kind of like I remember just like getting these downloads and just crying uncontrollably and be like, oh my God, is this what it really is? Like, it's just this. If you would understand like what I've been through on my personal journey, like I don't know if a lot of people could actually handle it. I mean, I barely could. Um, but now that I have this awareness, I feel like I could definitely trust my intuition a lot better. I feel more I feel like I could just trust the feelings that I get. And a lot of it comes in visions. Like I'll see visions, I'll have dreams. Like I'll do a Q&A with my spirit guides, be like, all right, what's going on with this? And they'll tell me. So it's hard to say like how exactly the whole process works. It just does.
I get it. No, I get it because
Yeah.
it's the same. Like I do a lot of meditation to prepare myself to be able to kind of get a download of sorts, but mine's more of like, hey, go look into this information because it's
Yeah.
important. Not so much what like you're able to see what's going to happen. So,
Yeah.
what's the wildest thing that you've seen that has yet to come true that you're kind of sitting on? Is there any information that you're sitting on right now that's not? Because I saw what you did with Australia and
Mhm.
Canada, and you reached out to the people that were in those countries and you gave them a breakdown, which is actually happening now because you talked about how they're going to lift a lot of the restrictions, but they're going to come on full force, which is what we're seeing right now.
Right. It's like don't fall for the trap. Like
Right.
that. And a lot of these countries are going to do that. They're going to be trapping people and thinking, "Oh, we're relieving the restrictions and things are getting back to normal." But it's like, okay, once you have people's guards down, that makes it so much easier to like step back in and be able to grab them with full force. And that's exactly what they're trying to do. So I try to advise everybody not to let their guards down by any means. Um, I do really feel like things are going to get worse before they get better. I really do feel like we're really going to see a lot of more comparisons to Nazi Germany, even and how that all played out. Um, which is interesting because I feel, and this is an intuitive feeling that I've had since 2020, to be honest. Something told me that what is happening now is just basically a continuation of the Third Reich, because Hitler was actually tied in with the occult, and a lot of the information that he received were actually through psychic mediums and channelers. He actually had there was this one psychic medium that he worked with, Maria Orovich, I believe, very beautiful psychic, and she was able to tap into Pleiadians, and she was a channeler, and so a lot of the information that Hitler received was actually through these channelers, and then that's why you're going to see a lot more comparisons with this whole event and extraterrestrials too. That's kind of behind the scenes, but I know that that's going to play out in a big way. And so I feel like this is just a continuation. I feel like it's more than just, you know, a specific group of people. I feel like initially the whole idea is complete globalism, and also removing certain groups of people as well. I feel like this whole thing too is also psychological manipulation in order to tear certain groups of people down. So I believe that there's a lot of racism, underlying racism, that is kind of perpetuating as wokeism, but really it's a way to actually demonize these groups of people. You have to pay attention to everything psychologically. I love psychology. I implement that all the time in my work. And I just see the patterns. I'm like, no, this is a psyop. I know exactly what they're trying to do. It's, you know,
It is crazy.
yeah. So I think that the crazy things we're definitely going to see, like especially in these other countries such as Australia and Canada, I really do feel like they're really going to start pushing things even harder. They're really going to start to implement these social credit systems. I do feel like there are going to be detainment camps that are erected as well. I really do feel like we're going to really start to see that more and more. And again, I think the crazier things too, extraterrestrials, but you know, and also natural weather events, you know, in the next few years, even like I had visions, and I'm not exactly sure when this is going to happen, but the whole structure of the planet is going to change as well. I saw new land masses forming, as well as old land masses getting wiped away, you know. It's just everything in the next 10 years is going to change exponentially. Like the world that we once knew is no longer going to exist. It's going to be wild.
It truly is, and we see that this is just like what's happening now is a foreshadow of that great shift, right? And what would the let me put this the right way. What would the harmonious future look like to Aubrey from this point forward? What would it be for that other side? What does that look like to you?
Well, one thing you have to realize is that remember that this reality that we're living in is basically a simulation. It's fake. It's a fake reality. Again, it's just a projection of consciousness, a hologram. But the real reality is, I actually got a chance to experience this, by the way, not too long ago. It really threw me in also another downward spiral because I didn't know what was happening to me. But I noticed this actually happened when I was smoking some marijuana. Sometimes marijuana actually does help me open my third eye.
Absolutely.
But I was going through a really wild shift in which reality completely shifted around me, and the vibration of it was different. I was actually having like what you would consider a psychedelic experience for a little bit. Things just kind of like they were more vibrant, more beautiful. They would pop out kind of more like everything just feels like more, I guess, real, you know, more it's hard to explain, like more structured, more detailed. I guess it would be the way that people would explain the afterlife to look like, if that makes sense. Like just bright, vivid, beautiful, just like it feels real, you know. But for me, and this is a vibration thing, by the way, that's why so many people are going through spiritual awakenings, because the current vibration that most people are in right now, they would not be able to handle this new reality. And when I was seeing this new reality, I couldn't vibrationally handle it. It would actually put me in panic mode. I would have panic attacks because it's just like, I'm not ready to see this. Even though it was beautiful too at the same time. Not only that, but we're going to really restructure, again, our systems. Education is going to be more for the children and the best needs of the students. Healthcare is going to be more holistic, more plant-based. We're going to really focus more on plant-based medicines. I really feel like the legalization of marijuana is coming very soon, as well as psychedelics, and that's going to be a pinnacle here. That's going to evolve. We're going to see these like federal legalizations of marijuana and psychedelics. This is going to open up people in a whole other way too. We're going to be more unified as a community. The whole like racism thing, that's not going to be existing anymore. And as well as like our federal government. And in fact, I truly believe that Joe Biden is our last president. After he leaves, things are going to change so drastically. Now it's going to be chaotic for a minute. I do feel like there is going to be somebody that temporarily takes over, and I definitely get strong female energy. Granted, I don't necessarily believe it's going to be Kamala, interestingly enough. She might fill in temporarily, but I feel like there's going to be so much structural change that somebody's going to fill in temporary, but then there's like a dismantling, and then there's a reworking of the system. I also see states seceding and also creating their own governments as well. So much is going to change, even in the next couple of years. Like, you're going to be surprised with how much shifts and changes in this world. And capitalism, that itself is going to be reworked. It's going to have kind of more of a socialistic type of energy, but not in the way that we know it to be, because socialism as it is now is easily corruptible. But you know, the society we're going to see is a lot going to be more socialistic, in the sense that we're going to start dismantling big corporations, and there's going to be more privately owned businesses, and people are going to be supporting those businesses. And that there's something called the Great Resignation that started in 2020. So many people are leaving their jobs, like countless people. And a lot of people that I've spoken to, my clients, are like, I want to leave my job. What do I do next? And this is about people aligning with their path, their destinies. So many people are pulling out of big corp, and they're wanting to start up their own businesses. And that's going to be our future. I'm like really stoked about it.
Me too. Me too. It was actually my story as well. I was working overnights in a giant warehouse for a company that's down the road from me, and it was a good job, but at the same time, overnights was just destroying me mentally, physically. It was really bad. But then, you know, the last 2 years happened, and I was able to redirect my energies into this and creating a brand and having a great time doing it, and being able to focus on research and really expand the internal as opposed to the external, right? And I think that's one of the positives that we saw with that Great Resignation in the last 2 years. Is that's kind of like the silver lining, is people are able to really come together and bask in that glory of that internal energy and focusing it on themselves and what they truly are passionate about, because a lot of people were getting paid to stay home and all the rest of it. So it was definitely an eye-opening experience for so many people, and I think that was the match that really started this fire that's really taken on the whole world by storm, and giving us the ability to come together as a collective and show the elites that we're not going to take it anymore, and your days are numbered.
Right. That's true. And we're going to stick it to the man.
That's right. Old school hippies to new age pioneers, right? I mean, that's really what we do.
I'm totally an old school hippie. Like I swear to God, I was a hippie in a past life. I love the hippie movement. New wave hippies are just, I don't even know what happened. Like, don't even call yourself hippie.
Yeah, no, they're radical. They're radicalized, and that's what we were talking about before. Is that programming is you have to fit within this specific box that's dictated by the powers that be, and that's all a psychological program to get you to think, act, and respond to certain issues in certain ways. The programming is so heavy that, you know, even when you don't say it and think it, it's already programmed. And once we're shining, that's one of the things I also did in the beginning of this year is kind of shine light on that program. Is that when you watch TV, the people who are pushing those commercials know your subconscious better than you do. And
Mhm.
you should really take inventory of your own self-consciousness or your consciousness, but also your self-conscious, because what that does is it gives you this ability to maneuver and navigate and create your own program. And now
Mhm.
nobody can, all that external stimuli will no longer penetrate your outer shell unless you let it.
Right. That's true.
I think so. I mean, I could be wrong, but we see these commercials, and you always hear the jingles, and you sing them, and you're like, "Wait a minute, what? Like, why was that even stuck in my head?" Because
Yeah.
I knew it would be. I knew it would be. And that's another thing I think of when we get to this new Earth, is this more like you said of a communal type of society where nobody's left behind. Nobody really has that super want or need when it comes to housing or food or
Mhm.
medicine. That stuff is all, but we're not giving into this gigantic government or this big government that's regulating how and why we're doing those things, which is
Right.
sort of that socialistic tendency, but not quite. And I
Right.
think that there is a lot of good within some social programs, non-regulated by government, regulated by people. But
Mhm.
again, man is corruptible too. We see it if anybody looks at the Bible. That, like you said in one of your videos, even in the Bible, they talk about this great awakening, which is the
Yeah.
rapture, and it's
Mhm.
seen as a staple in a lot of written ancient histories. And we've got to be able to maneuver with all that information because it's really going to help us bring in that new world. And I'm stoked for it for sure.
Yeah. And that's why, there's people like you and I out there, like everybody kind of has their own mission to fulfill in this whole great awakening. And, everybody kind of has their own role, but the whole point is to awaken the masses. And it's because of people like us that share the truth and share our insights. Luckily people that are open-minded enough are willing to hear that and be able to, address it and then also help awaken others. And because if you look back 2 years ago, how close-minded everybody was, like the amount of awakened people were very far and few between. Everybody was like, oh, we need to wear a mask, and we need to take the V, and all of that stuff, and everybody was pushing it. And it wasn't until things got really like, hold on, like maybe this isn't what we thought it would be. And then we had people speaking out like, hey, listen, this is what's going on. So it's beautiful because I think compared to 2 years ago, gosh, we have seen such a mass awakening. So many people are awake now. And I also feel more brave because, like, when I first started out, I started out on YouTube in 2020. So many people were, you know, crapping on me and being like, "Oh, you're full of crap and you're part of Q and you're a Trumper and all of this other stuff." And I'm like, "Dude, I'm just spitting facts. You're just watch, you'll see." And sure enough, like most of my predictions have come true, and more people are gravitating. They're like, "Oh, hey, you know what? I think you're right." So wild.
I agree with that, and it was very difficult in the very beginning. In I believe January of 2021, I went on a podcast, and I did sort of like what we're doing now, and I laid a lot of it down from what I understood because it was talked about in these papers that the Rockefeller Foundation had put out there in their 2014 annual report, and I kind of used that information to say, look, this is what I believe is coming because of this pattern that we're seeing. And even then, it was one of my good friends, but even then, he was like, "Whoa, that's a lot. That's a
Right.
lot to really take in."
Mhm.
And now he's like, "You were spot on, dead
Mhm.
100% right." We have a
Mhm.
question from my good friend Omar, who is one of my partners. We do a lot of events together, conscious based events. He says, "Do you think do you think it is an archonic based false reality that we have been interacting with for the past several thousand years?"
Um, It really depends on how far back you want to go, but I want to say, I don't know, like, yeah, I would say for the past, and I've been having discussions with this, like especially with my son. My son is very open with this. I really feel like the pinnacle, like really what shifted us into this false reality was organized religion. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but it's straight facts. It was basically the beginning of groups trying to control the masses, and by putting them in fear. And that basically kind of started with the Catholic religion, and then just kind of spurred off from there. And I think that that's really when we lost sight of who we were as spiritual beings. And I think prior to that, like the ancient Egyptians, the ancient Romans, the ancient Greeks, like they knew what was up. They were very tapped in and very aware. They were very aligned with like beings beyond our galaxy, and their structures and their belief systems were very much in alignment with what real reality was based on. So yeah, I do believe that we've been living a false reality for a long time.
It's like a matrix inside of a matrix. It's really
Yeah.
it's wild because of what they're doing in the sense of the manipulation, but it's also that world that they're creating outside of that manipulation that's also a matrix inside of a matrix, and it's pretty wild. And
Absolutely.
one of the things that I'm working on now is a presentation of the Pleiades, and the Pleiades is the seven sisters in some cultures, but it's the star system that every culture on this planet look towards for
Mhm.
one reason or another, and it's all in their folklore. And I think that there is I want to say that it was maybe given to them in this way that this is where you look because that's where life kind of came from. That's
Yeah.
where you're from, and everybody has that look back to the past, and it's wild. It's been a wild presentation of the information that I'm discovering while
Right.
doing it, and how these seven sisters or the star system is revered, and how they go about revering it from from their ancestral gods that told them about it to their own ceremonies and rituals and initiations that kind of they give themselves over to it in this wild way. It's really, it's pretty wild. It's a pretty
Yeah.
wild thing. One of the things I wanted to ask you too is I know you have your website, which we've been putting into the chat. Tell us about the services that you offer in detail. Explain what services there are, and basically all about it.
Yeah. So recently I just moved to Florida, so I'm still
Nice.
kind of trying to get myself like adjusted to what I'm offering, because I used to do in-person sessions, which it also included intuitive readings as well, life coaching, hypnotherapy, and like Reiki healing. I haven't been able to really find an office to where I could do in-person sessions as of yet, but if for the time being, I am offering virtual sessions. So what I'm really focusing on too is I'm really trying to expand on the life coaching part, because I feel like that does people a lot more benefit, because not only that is because we're going through such a big awakening, and having people understand their patterns and to be able to heal and to evolve is going to do wonders for people ascending into the 5D. And that's really what I want my focus to be, is intuitive life coaching. But right now I'm also doing intuitive readings as well. So usually those are like my main focuses at this time, the intuitive readings and the intuitive coaching. And I also do, different types of coaching. So I do career coaching if you're struggling to kind of find out what to do next. Like if you're part of this great resignation, I could help you with that. I basically read your energy and vibration to see what would be a good fit for you moving forward. As well as I also do health coaching too. So if you feel like there could be any blockages health wise, I look at you intuitively, and then I give you recommendations on, how to get yourself back um, into a better healthy place. I do pet readings too. I do mediumship as well. I could contact loved ones. So there's quite a few different modalities that I use to help people.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I know you don't want to give any names because a lot of it's private, but what's the craziest thing you've either encountered or had happen while doing some of these readings for people?
Oh, wow. Gosh, I've had some interesting ones. My generally, I'll get like your typical, oh, what does my life hold, or love life or whatever. Every once in a while, I will tap into somebody that's very, very unique individually, and I've actually tapped into people that have experienced like alien abductions. Um, or have like strong ties with EPs. Also past life readings, those are fun too. Like I will see some crazy things from people's past lives as well. um Gosh, I'm trying to remember. I know that there was one that I did not too long ago that was like, whoa, that was insane. But they could be fun. Just tapping into a person's soul and their energy to find out where they're from. Some people aren't even like necessarily from here energetically. There's star seeds. I don't know if you're familiar with that
Oh,
concept, but
absolutely.
I read for a lot of star seeds, a lot of people that feel like they don't belong on this planet. I'm able to help guide them what system they're from, what they need to understand in this lifetime, that kind of stuff. So I have very strong clairsentience. So it's very easy for me to tap into a person's being and find their soul's origin and what they need to know. I could also tap into people's spirit guides. I'll channel them and it'll give, the client that information, like, what do I need to know from my spirit guides?
That's
Um,
awesome. That's
yeah,
a difficult one. You don't get that a lot. And you
right.
know, I'm an ambassador for something called the Wish Alliance, which is Walk-ins, Indigo Children, Star Seeds, and I forget the last one off the top of my head, but we do a lot. We deal with a lot of the people who are, star seeds like that, and really
Okay.
don't feel that belonging. And you're right; it's wild. But go ahead. Sorry, I didn't
Mhm.
mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, no, that's fine. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much what I do. Yeah.
Awesome, awesome. One other thing I wanted to ask you too is for people starting out with some of the same abilities that you could possibly have, what advice would you give them, or what direction might like point them in and tell them, hey, look, this might help you to kind of help your skills evolve quicker or better or more. I want to say, be more spot on like yourself.
Right. Well, when somebody is first starting out in this, there's always like that second guessing that comes up, kind of like when you're reading for somebody, you're like, am I right? Am I tapping in the right way? And it could lead to a lot of anxiety, and it can cause misreadings because you're not fully trusting that self and your higher self. It's very important to make sure that you're also working on your chakras, your crown chakra, your third eye specifically, making sure that you allow yourself to be open and receptive. A lot of people just they want to do this, but they're also caught up in that fear vibration. So that's why it's really important to make sure that you work on yourself fully and spiritually, align your chakras, balance them. Um, and then there's a lot of intuitives that they're very gifted, but they're also coming from a dark place or a place of greed. And you have to be mindful of like just making sure that you're also staying away from those people. Like if an intuitive reaches out like, oh, you've got a spell on you, you need to give me $5,000, like, you got to stay away
Wow.
from those people. Like there's so many scams out there. And I really try to kind of help my community by letting people know, like, hey, there are ethical psychics out there. There are people that actually just do want to help with the gifts that we have. I want to eliminate that stigma, and unfortunately there's a lot of shitty people out there, but it is what it is. But yeah, trust your intuition is, yeah, pretty much.
Getting rid of that stigma is going to be a tall task because of all those shitty people. And you're absolutely
Yeah.
right. There is a lot of, and that's sort of what we've been kind of talking about today is that negative energy. And there is even those people are somewhat of a psyop in the sense that they are trying to divert your energy from something that could potentially be helpful. And
Absolutely.
whether it's for a, globalist it's or just because they're doing it out of their own personal volition, it's still they're not on the side of right, and that's why people like you are very important to have, because we need more people that are out there showing people the way and actually helping people. So it's a very admirable thing you're doing, and I have the utmost honor and respect for you because of what we've talked about today, and the ability to just show people the right path. And I think it's truly important. And yeah, I mean, we're getting down to the last 5 minutes or so, but is there anything that you wanted to say to people out there before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I suppose the last bit that I would like to say is, again, just reminding people that things will get worse before they get better. And that's not something people really want to hear. But again, I'm not one to fluff things up. But again, just understanding that the challenges that are coming our way is in order to push the collective to wake up even more. So the remaining people that are sleeping, the events that are going to play out are going to really help awaken more people. And something we also have to keep in mind too is that there will be a lot of loss that we have to endure too, and to be able to like mentally and spiritually prepare yourself for that, and understand that most of the people that came here have volunteered, and they're a part of this awakening process as well. So just make sure that you're staying in that loving vibration. Make sure that you understand, like, this is a hologram, and it seems crazy, but we're destroying it. We're getting rid of it. We're going to be able to see the true reality in the near future, which is something to really look forward to. So my whole suggestion is just to keep your head up high, spread love, spread truth, align with your authentic self, continuing to work on yourself as individuals too, making sure that you're working on your physical health, your spiritual health, just being kind to people. I know that during this time we could get really frustrated when people pop up and they still don't understand what's going on, and it's frustrating. I get it. It's like, how can you not see what's going on? But we have to learn to just surrender and not invest our energy into those people, because if they refuse to wake up, that's their choice, and we've got free will, and we need to embrace that free will. We need to respect that free will. And like I said, if the people choose not to wake up, unfortunately, they're going to have the consequences that come from that. So just focus on your family. Oh, and one thing I do want to say is to make sure that you guys are stocking up. We are going to experience food shortages very shortly here. I feel like starting in May and June, we're really going to see a lot of intensity when it comes to even higher gas prices, oil shortages, food shortages. When you are stocking up on food, make sure that you're going to be stocking up on meat, especially chicken. And the reason why I say that is because I really do feel like in the near future, our meat supply will be tainted to where it may be unedible. What the elites are trying to do is they're trying to cut off our meat supply because they basically kind of want to switch us to veganism, which is really not really realistic. So they really do want to get us off the meat supply. So just make sure that you're stocking up on meat, organic farm raised meat, local meat if you can. Get generators too, because I do feel power outages are on the way. These solar flares have been intense, and I really do feel like it's really going to cause some electrical disturbances here very soon. So just be prepared for the months to come. Weather events are going to be intense too. The summer is going to be really crazy too. So watch out for tornadoes. I don't know why. I just feel like tornadoes are just going to be everywhere here soon. So it's going to be like I said, a sci-fi dystopian movie is it's going to get a little wild. So
That's wild. And you know what? I just want to say again, it's been an honor and a privilege to talk to you today, and I really appreciate you coming through. And hopefully you'll come back and we'll check in, and we'll sit down with a bunch of people and just have some conversations that I really enjoyed today. And I think we're
yeah,
gonna
thank you for having me.
Absolutely, a good working relationship into the future. And it's funny that yours is called It's Your Universe and mine's called Full
I
Spectrum Universe.
know
So
it was meant to be.
that's right. That's right. So guys, it's your universe and in the full spectrum of the universe to understand it all. So with that being said, I want to thank everybody who came through to watch the show today. Thank you again to Aubrey. She's incredible and the work she does is amazing. And yeah, that's it from us. So we're out of here.
All right. See you guys later.